Good evening. Welcome to the June 9th meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It's my pleasure as Mayor Pro Tem to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on both sides on these ledges here. If you'd like to, please pick one up and follow along with the proceedings. There will also be multiple opportunities for public comment with respect to items both appearing on tonight's agenda and items of a general nature. And I'll certainly alert you to those items as they appear on the agenda. Our first item of business is to recite the pledge. We've got the flag over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll now ask our village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldeck.
Here.
Commissioner White. Commissioner Vitimo.
Here.
Commissioner Jose.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett. Mayor Tully.
Thank you. We have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is proclamations. We have two proclamations today that I will be reading on behalf of the mayor, who is not able to be with us tonight. Would like to note that the mayor does apologize that he's unable to be with us. He has some work obligations, and he sent me a note today and just wanted to express his sincere apologies that he's unable to be with us tonight. Our first proclamation is with regard to National Garden Week. It reads as follows. Whereas the Garden Club of Downers Grove is celebrating its 88th anniversary, and whereas the Garden Club of Downers Grove was founded on February 28, 1927, and Mrs. M.L. Puffer was elected president, and Mrs. Lyman was elected Wildflower and Conservation Chairman, and whereas the objectives of the club remain the same today as in 1927, that is, the advancement of gardening, development of home grounds, and furthering village beautification to stimulate an interest in cooperative gardening and to aid in the protection of forest, wildflowers, and birds. And whereas, over these years, the Garden Club has planted flowers, bulbs, trees, and bushes at nearly every park and school in the village, as well as at the library, the Main Street Cemetery, and the Maple Grove Forest Preserve. And whereas the Garden Club of Downers Grove is a charter member of the Garden Clubs of Illinois and the National Garden Clubs, and whereas scholarship awards are given each year to horticulture students at the University of Illinois, now therefore I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the week of June 7th to June 13th, 2015 as National Garden Week in the Village of Downers Grove, and congratulate the Garden Club of Downers Grove on their accomplishments and wish them much continued success. Dated this 9th day of June 2015, Downers Grove, Illinois. And obviously, reading on behalf of the mayor. I'll ask Mary Ann Holm and any representatives of the Garden Club to please join me up front. We'll take a picture. Stand right over here. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you'd like to offer a few words about the Garden Club, Garden Week, more than welcome. This podium right here.
Thank you, Mr. Olson, and also everyone who's here. I hope that you realize that right here in the downtown area in the Main Street Cemetery, we take care of two gardens. There's a Blue Star marker and also where the little bench is right at the top of the stairs. And we also take care of Daddy Wells' grave, who is part of the Girl Scouting tradition here in Downers Grove. And also we care for the gardens at the American Legion Hall, and most of you know that's where traffic court is held. So lots of people get to see those flowers. And every year we participate with them in their Memorial Day ceremony. And we also have, as was mentioned, planted trees at all the local schools. This year we were at, I believe, Pierce Downer School. And we continue to do good things in the neighborhood. So take time and smell the flowers.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is with regard to Flag Day. It reads, whereas by Act of Congress of the United States dated June 14, 1777, the first official flag of the United States was adopted. And whereas by Act of Congress dated August 3, 1949, June 14th of each year was designated National Flag Day. And whereas the Congress has requested the President to annually issue a proclamation designating the week in which June 14th occurs as National Flag Week. And whereas on December 8, 1982, the National Flag Day Foundation was chartered to conduct educational programs and to encourage all Americans to pause for the Pledge of Allegiance on Flag Day, June 14th. And whereas Flag Day celebrates our nation's symbol of unity, a democracy in a republic, and stands for our country's devotion to freedom, to the rule of all, and to equal rights for all, now, therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim June 14, 2015 as Flag Day in the Village of Downers Grove, and urge all citizens of Illinois to pause at 6:00 p.m. on this date for the 36th Annual National Pause for the Pledge of Allegiance to the Flag, and join all Americans in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States of America. Dated this 9th day of June, Downers Grove, Illinois. And I believe Mary Kay Nelson and Carol Wanschneider from the Daughters of the American Revolution are here to receive the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Olson and Commissioners. I have just a couple of interesting facts about our flag. The first flag was commissioned with a payment of 3 pieces of wampum. By 1777, the U.S. was still waffling on the exact look of its flag. This was a cause for concern for Thomas Green, an American Indian who wanted the protection of the official flag while he traveled through treacherous territory on his way to Philadelphia. Thomas asked for the help of Congress, throwing in the aforementioned payment, to sweeten the deal. Within 10 days, a resolution was passed, finalizing the flag as a creation with 13 stars and 13 stripes. The date, as you said a few moments ago, was June 14th, 1777. Our second little fact, the 50-star pattern was designed by a high school student. When Alaska and Hawaii became states 49 and 50, President Eisenhower received thousands of ideas for an updated flag. Almost all of them were a 50-star flag, including one from Robert G. Heft, a 17-year-old student from Lancaster, Ohio, who created the design for a class project. He was one of 3 to submit the version that was accepted and remains in use today. Robert received a B- on his project. The Downers Grove chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, look forward to celebrating Flag Day this Sunday afternoon in Fishel Park with our community. Join us for an afternoon of family fun, celebrating our veterans, and maybe a little John Philip Sousa. The concert starts at 3. I hope everyone can be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Commissioner Waldeck,
Aye.
Commissioner Fatimo,
Aye.
Commissioner Jose,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson.
Aye. Minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment on general items not appearing on tonight's agenda, as well as an opportunity for public comment on the consent agenda. We'll take this time to extend to any members who wish to comment on items not appearing on the agenda. Please come to the podium, state your name, and welcome to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Mary Duhigg, and I own a home on Florence Avenue. I'm here tonight to address the Maple reconstruction. My neighbor attended the feedback meeting while I was traveling on business and was told at the meeting the repair of Florence was incidental to the Maple project, and that the curbs in bringing our street up to the level of Westmont was not part of the plan. This conflicts with the details of the project on the website, stating construction will consist of installation of all storm sewers and water main first. After storm sewers are completed, curbs will be removed and replaced, followed by the removal of the existing road or milling of the asphalt surfaces. Once the excavation surface removal is complete, the road will be installed, repaved, shoulders replaced, and all the parkways will be resodded. Even though our street is noted as in scope, it appears that we are not receiving the same services. We would appreciate a reconsideration of your position as well as an explanation. As shown in the picture, here, our street has water issues. And given the water on the sidewalk, we walk down the middle of the street to the train station. Most mornings there are cars parked on the street overnight, unticketed, so we walk down the middle, which can be dangerous when drivers are not paying attention at that hour of the morning, and then we run into issues. Then we get to the crossing at the train at Burlington and Fairview, and there's another water flooding issue. So I have the following questions. How do the engineers feel the Maple project will impact the problems of our street? Can you make the street more level so there is less pooling, as it takes days for that water to disappear? Why would you tear up our street, subject us to all this construction, and not provide the same curb appeal and storm sewers as our neighbors? We are all confused. Can some adjustments be done to deal with our rain, like curbs to reduce the frequency of people's basements flooding? Did you consider working with Metra on fixing the solution of the train station at Fairview when you had drainage issues at Main? We have a sad feeling that this side of town gets limited time and budget allocation, even though we pay the same tax rate. Is this becoming taxation without equal services? In reading your stormwater ordinance, it states the purpose is to reduce the existing potential stormwater damage to public health, safety, life, and property. The water in the culverts and sidewalk attract mosquitoes, a health hazard. Our safety is impacted as we walk down the middle of the street to avoid the flooding, which also impacts my life and the property in the area, which has flooded, causing financial impact to the residents. We would appreciate your reconsideration of your position and provide storm sewers and curbs. In closing, I would like to thank Councilman Jose and Barnett, who came to the area to see it, to see the issues. We await your response. If you are unable to help us, we will continue to explore other options. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Is there any further public comment of a general nature?
I'm Bea Bennett, 913 Clyde Drive, and I'm not here to talk about Clyde. I'm here to talk about mosquitoes and the water problem that pervades our entire community. I think it's very unsafe, and I think it's an unwise expenditure. I can see the coming of big problems, okay? I tried to put these onto I call it a stick. Maybe you people are more technical than I am. Can everybody hear me? Barely. Okay. Barely? Barely hear me? Okay. All right. let's start. There are, I have to start with my place because this does not have ditches, and it has a tree that absorbs, I think Lloyd Bowen said, called the Morton's Arboretum, a tree can absorb 100 gallons of water a day. And since water, stormwater, is a major issue, this tree is a beautiful example. Right now, if you can look closely, you'll see it's covered with blossoms, and it stayed in bloom for 3 weeks. So it is a very healthy tree. They plan to remove all the soil around that tree and put in a retention pond, which I think is a high risk for something that can guzzle water. Okay. The other problem we have are with deep ditches. And I don't want a ditch in my yard, but I hear that they're all over the place. So I have taken pictures so all of you can see what is going on from Ogden Avenue and probably north all the way south. And it's alarming. We heard from somebody on Florence who said that her elderly parents came to visit, and she looked out the window and saw her mom and dad's car, but she didn't see them. And they were in their 90s. It turned out her mom got out of the car on the passenger side and fell into this ditch. And Dad saw her go down, and he went around to help her, and then she couldn't see either one, and they had to go out and save their elderly parents. Now, we don't need that in this town. A lot of these places with ditches, in fact, I think the only place I saw them is where we don't have curbs. And curbs are essential if we're going to save our streets, meaning the paving of our streets, because without that, no matter what they say, there are so many pictures that show that our streets get eaten away when the soil erodes underneath them. And the other thing this gal, and I believe she was on Florence, she said that a fire truck fell in the ditch because of the snow. Do you remember her getting up and saying that a couple of weeks ago? I think that's alarming. I don't think it's something we can just shrug off as that's life. It's not life, and it shouldn't be life in Downers Grove. And it occurred to me that we might rename our town Mosquitoville, because with all this standing water, mosquitoes do breed. And right now, I called the DuPage County Health Department to find out what's really, how many cases have been reported this year. And they said none. They had over 2,000 test sites. There were X number of mosquitoes that looked like they were carrying the virus, but none tested positive. But on the other hand, the high season for West Nile virus is the end of July until the end of September. And their testing, when I called, their last report was May 29th. So we've got a whole mosquito season in front of us. And I would hate to think that somebody in our village gets West Nile virus. I could be wrong, but I think somebody died in Westmont a year or so ago. All right. I also went to, somebody had mentioned Downers Grove Estates, which is just south of 63rd Street off of Main. And it's a redeveloped area with some really nice new homes. And they have extremely deep ditches. In fact, they've had, the first project was done a year ago, and Public Works found that, cars backing out of their driveways, they fell in and they had to use tow trucks. I know nobody on this council would want that to happen to their home. I don't want it to happen to mine. And these people didn't like it either, and they went to Public Works. And Public Works said, well, there's little we can do except go back and redo it. So in the spring, they got another redo. And I don't know who paid for it, but it's a big area, and I'm sure it was costly. And then they lined it, these deep ditches, with sod. Sod is pretty, but the ditches are so deep, you can't mow. So what happens? The grass grows, the water goes through it, it doesn't drain. And mosquitoes breed there. And they have young families. And little kids play outside. In fact, I was there over the weekend, and there were kids out playing in their bare feet. And I thought, wow, this is dangerous. I would not want to raise kids where there are deep ditches and standing water. And you will see them. I haven't used this yet, but Mike said it's not hard to learn, and you will see this. All right, there's something else that I mentioned once before, that when we redo the streets, I believe we need curbs, but not everybody in my neighborhood thinks so. But people in other neighborhoods think these are important. And Public Works said, if you didn't get them when your subdivision was built, you're not going to get them now. I think that's a wrong attitude, because people are falling into ditches, cars are being towed out of ditches, and you will see what some people have done. In fact, this morning, I was out at an area near the golf course on Belmont Road, and I went back to check a site. It was at Hadow and Cross Street, and I have seen 5 pipes drain into an area that was maybe as long as this table. And I thought, I'll go back and just see how the grass is growing. It wasn't grass anymore. It was sharp chunks of white stone, and you will see that. I asked the owner, he had just gotten home from work at 9 in the morning, and I said, are you happy with this? And he said, no, he's not. But the town could not afford to put it all in a culvert. I think Downers can do better than that. Okay, I'm going to start.
Ms. Bennett,
Leave it in one spot and press the...
Okay, all right, this is a very healthy tree. And now I'm going to press.
I can do it for you.
You can do it? Okay. This is a service truck, and the reason I'm showing this is because this area does not have curbs, and that truck has 2 lawnmowers in it that are very, very heavy. It's got the wheels of the truck and that trailer on the shoulder of the road, and that's a lot of weight that the street was not designed for, okay? And here, the town actually paid for this crew to come out, which is the first time they've mowed the parkways. I call them parkways. What I mean is the triangles that are grass. Okay, I'm going to try to call them triangles. Anyway, this crew came out by the city. They looked at it, and they said, we don't really need to mow. It's not that tall. Well, we were unexpected. Neighbors have been mowing that for as long as I've lived there, and that's since 1971. So that's 44 years of mowing, and it's unusual for the town to send out, but it was the day after last council meeting. All right. This is the crew, and it doesn't show up as well, but they've got 2 big heavy mowers here. And if you look, you can see how the street, I shouldn't move that. The street hasn't been repaved in 39 years, okay? And this is the exact spot where that lawn service was. And you can see the gully that those tires create. So what I'm suggesting is if you're going to put in asphalt streets, somebody explained there's a cement ribbon that can be put in to strengthen the shoulder. And I find that important because I think more and more people will be using lawn services. Okay, no.
Ms. Bennett, I just note that policy states that we ask each person to conclude their comments in about 5 minutes.
You want me to stop?
You've gone on for almost 10 minutes. So just ask that maybe perhaps wrap up your presentation.
I can't. I can try. All right, this is
Thank you.
a ditch. It has no reinforcement on the shoulder. the street is going. Okay, let's skip that. Okay, that's 2 healthy trees. I don't know how to make it go. All right, this is by Pepperidge Farm. They removed 2 houses or more, and there are McMansions that I call new houses. And this is a retention pond. I think that's ugly. I don't like it. I think it breeds mosquitoes. It's not maintained. It's an eyesore. If I were buying a house in that neighborhood, I'd say forget it. Okay, next. This is an area on Ogden Avenue in Drendel. It is, again, a retention pond, and it's not maintained. It is ugly. It is full of mosquitoes, I'm sure, by this time. I can't make it go.
I can just do it for you.
All right. All right. This is very close to 59th Street and Main Street. It is designed, it's Ebersal's Park, which kids go sledding there. It's a nice slope. It is a retention pond on the left, and across this S sign is a creek, and that holds stormwater, okay? And it's very close to our area. This is Hummer Park, which is beautiful. It is maintained by the park district, and St. Joe's Creek comes through here. And next picture. This is the other side of Fairview, and this is run by the Park Public Works. And it's got a dead tree, it's got milk bottles, it's got plastic, it's all weeds, and it's not pretty, and it too will breed mosquitoes. Okay, next.
Could I interrupt real quick?
Uh-huh.
That's actually about a half a block from my house. That's an improvement.
That's an improvement?
Yeah.
You mean it was worse?
Yeah.
That is shameful. I mean, Fairview is a main drag in town, and if it was worse than I saw it, that's not a good use. Okay, next. This is Prentice Creek, and the creek is not much bigger than St. Joe's, but at this particular part, it broadens out to become floodplain. And what happens is that water gets trapped and it stagnates. And I remember a few years ago it made the newspaper because there are condominiums on both sides of the creek, and the people were saying that stagnant water stinks. They have young children, and the town said, that's not our problem, that's the homeowner's problem. Well, I don't know whose problem it is, but it's not good land use. Okay, next picture. This is just another picture of Prentice Creek, and if I had that near me, well, mosquitoes travel a mile, so actually I do get the benefit of that breeding ground. Okay, next picture. This is by the golf course. This is the ditch I told you would see. Now, there are 5 pipes that drain into here, and I thought this one, it goes underneath what's Cross Street, and this is the tail end of Belmont Prairie, which is well, the Park District is very proud of having that area. And when I looked at where this water is discharging, I made a mistake. I thought the water I saw in Belmont Prairie came from this ditch. And this owner of this house over here said, no, it goes into something in the center of the street and it gets discharged south. And I said, well, what is all that green, slimy water in there? And he said, the Public Works did a project at the tail end of Belmont Prairie, but it didn't work. And so all the water backs up into that heavy area. And he invited me to go in there, and I said, I'm not going in there. I couldn't even get a picture, and no way was I going to go in there this morning. Anyway, I think Public Works needs to be told to maintain what it has. Don't take on new jobs until you can do the job you've already got. Okay, now the next picture.
Ms. Bennett,
I'm rushing, I'm really rushing, Dave.
well, it's been 5 minutes
All right.
since I last
I
stated
know,
my
I'm
commentary.
sorry, but I
So,
have heard others go on too. All right, this is...
I understand.
This is Brookbank.
That was under a different chairman.
This is 59th Street. Actually, the address of this is 5800 Brookbank. And it caught my eye because this is not plants, it's green slime. And the person who lives in the house adjacent to it has a footbridge to get across that. It is just an invitation for sickness. Okay, next one. I'm really rushing, Dave, really rushing. Okay, this is along, well, it's on the north side of town, I forgot, no, not Haddam. Anyway, this is a big ditch, and it is so deep, and these people have cracks in their driveway. And I thought, that's bad news. I wouldn't want cracks in my driveway. Okay, next picture. And this is a typical ditch, and it fills up with crud, and people can't mow it. In fact, on Adelia Street, I happened to see a young teenager trying to mow this ditch, and he couldn't. The lawnmower was pitched downward, and he couldn't go down, and he couldn't go up. And that's not good. Okay, next picture. This is, if you look carefully, see this brown or black square here? It's a very, very deep ditch. It's less than 200 feet from Main Street at 63rd Street. It's Downers Grove Estates. This is a railroad tie. The owner of this house put in 3 railroad ties because there are no curbs, and the owner, his neighbor, went into this ditch and had to get a tow truck to get out. So he put in railroad ties. That's not attractive, but it's practical. Okay, last picture, next picture. This is, if you look carefully, this is one sod from last year. This is sod number 2 from this spring. And I was out there yesterday, and they told me this whole area, the ditches had to be deepened, so they got new sod again. Now, that's expensive. As a taxpayer, I'm not happy with that. Okay, next picture. This doesn't show up very well, but it's after a rain, and here's a big dribble of rain. And I thought, for the amount of rain, stormwater they're carrying, that should be in a culvert, and this should be mowed. Thank you. One more. Go for it. Okay, this is another. You can see here's one side, here's another side, and here's crud. Okay? I have a better vocabulary than this, by the way. This, again, is where we should have curbs or at least a ribbon of cement. Okay? And this is Lyman, and Lyman is worth going to. It's a very nice area. It's close to the YMCA, and they have these creeks in the ditches, and it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And if you look, you can see how the street is already eroding. That's because there's no stability. Okay, next picture. Here is another one, and this man has a beautiful, nice, new driving. And look at what he ties up to. Next picture.
Ms. Bennett, I'm going to have to ask you
All right.
to stop. I mean, I think we understand that your concerns,
I
and
think-
I appreciate you sharing them with us.
I hate to do this, but I will say that I want everybody on this commission to think twice before you approve any more stormwater systems, because I think what's going on is an invitation to trouble, and kids and seniors really hurt. Commissioner Jose said if I show pictures to identify the site, so I'm going to, I did rush to ACE, and I did make copies, and
You can just hand those to Baker.
I've
and he'll pass them
identified the
along.
locations. I hope that you will go and look at them.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. I'd just like to note that, I apologize for not stating it previous to this, but in out of respect for all the members of the public that are here, and so we're ensure that we're able to hear everybody's comments, I'm going to ask that everyone adhere to our council rules enacted in our municipal code, which Rule 8, Section B states each person addressing the council shall limit his or her address to 5 minutes. So I'd just ask members of the public to please respect that time limit as we go forward, so we are allowed to hear all members of the public speak, and all members of the public get their due. So are there further comments of a general nature?
Good evening, my name is Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. I'm disappointed that 3 of the village council members aren't hearing this discussion, because this is a really important project that I have great concern about. I understand that the bid that came back that is up for vote
Ms.
next
Bowen.
week that we're discussing.
Is this general nature, or is
This
this
is
have to
Clyde
do
Estates.
with the items on first reading agenda?
This is the first reading agenda.
We'll have opportunity for public comment at the time of that agenda item. So I ask you, wait for those comments to be addressed at that time.
I'm a member, a resident of Downers Grove. The only thing
Could you state your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Mariana Holm at 4220 Highland Avenue. And the only thing that I wanted to raise, concern about is, the actual, building of, residences. My husband and I got really surprised. It's the northeast corner of Prairie and Washington, where there used to be one property, one home, and it was demolished, and I think this is going back, within the past 2 years. And 2 residences were put there, and I get concerned over water runoff, because there's just, it's so much as far as, in the news, and how much everyone is, dealing with this, and, larger and larger storm systems aren't, the best answer either, because, we're losing water in that regard. And I think there should be more thought in terms of how much property is being eaten up, and there's just, just this little bitty patch of land, and I think this is just, really doesn't make any sense, and is this a matter of, well, we'll get more taxes, and that's why it was approved? So that's the only thing that I wanted to really state.
Thank you very much for your comments. Other comments of a general nature?
It's more general than that. Good evening, my name is Nick Parker. I'm an intern with Citizen Advocacy Center. CAC is a nonpartisan, nonprofit legal organization with over 20 years' experience in building democracy in DuPage County. CAC was contacted by a concerned citizen about a perceived conflict of interest in a previously awarded contract to Christopher B. Burke Engineering Limited for the Clyde Estates Reconstruction Project. Both the director and assistant director of Public Works previously worked at Burke. It is unclear whether Burke was the overall lowest bid, but we know that they were chosen over 5 other firms. Based on my research, I found nowhere in the record where the employment relationship between the director and the assistant director was publicly disclosed as it pertains to the awarding of the planning contract to Burke. In the interest of open government, the decisions of a public body should be made so that citizens are aware of any perceived conflicts of interest. Although Downers Grove has not yet agreed to adopt the DuPage County Ethics Ordinance, village officials should be encouraged to meet its written standards. This ordinance recommends that employees disclose former employment and abstain from discussion or voting upon issues that concern the conflicted entity. Disclosure is the best practice where there is a perceived conflict of interest, even if the employment in question was many years ago. Downers Grove should pay attention to how the public perception of these relationships might cause a conflict of interest. Government officials should be proactively thinking about potential perceived conflicts and making full disclosures before the decision-making process to allay public concerns as a whole. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Other comments of a general nature? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. That's the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. The motion is non-debatable. Village Clerk April Holden, please call the roll.
Commissioner Waldeck.
Aye.
Commissioner Fatimo. Aye. Commissioner Jose.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson.
Aye. That brings us to active agenda, item 7. We have no items on our active agenda, so we'll move right to our first reading agenda. At this time, we traditionally turn over this part of the meeting to Village Manager David Fieldman for presentation of the items. Manager Fieldman?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Olson. There are 4 items on tonight's first reading agenda. The first 2 items pertain to the construction project at Clyde Country Estates. And here to present background information on these 2 items is our Public Works Director, Nan Newland.
Ms. Newland?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to present the first 2 items, item A and B, and I'd like to do those together if there's no objection. They're related to the same project. Item A is award of a contract for construction engineering services to Hancock Engineering for an amount of $90,668. Item B is a bid for construction to A-Lamp Concrete Contractors in an amount of $2,361,248.70. The proposed improvements include the reconstruction of streets throughout the subdivision using full-depth recycling, improving drainage to benefit residents and to provide a more long-lasting pavement, which includes reshaping ditches, constructing bioswales, and constructing intermittent storm sewers and culverts. The project also includes traffic calming and parkway restoration. The proposed schedule for this project, if approved, would be that there would be a neighborhood meeting scheduled for the week of June 29th, and a letter would be sent out to all the residents in the neighborhood after award of the contract. The project would begin construction the week of July 6th, with substantial completion by November 2015. The contract for Hancock Engineering, as I said, will provide construction observation and resident engineering services during construction. The village advertised a request for qualifications and received 10 submittals. 4 of the firms were pre-qualified, and the village received cost proposals from the 4 pre-qualified firms. Staff recommends award the contract to Hancock Engineering based on their understanding of the project, their capability to perform the work, their experience with similar projects, and their proposed fee. They are currently acting in this capacity for the village for the 2015 water main replacement project and have provided similar services for communities including Melrose Park and Norridge. For the second contract, a call for bids was issued for the construction contract, and 3 bids were received. A-Lamp Concrete Contractors of Schaumburg was the qualified low bidder. They have successfully completed subdivision reconstruction projects for the village in 2012, 13, and 14, including Valley View, Concord Square Unit 2, Oak Grove Unit 3, Brookins Center, and they are currently contracted for the work at Orchard Brook East. They have also satisfactorily completed similar work for the communities of Bartlett, Bloomingdale, and Lombard, and staff recommends award of the contract to A-Lamp Concrete. I'd be happy to answer any questions about either of these projects.
Thank you, Ms. Newland. We'll now open the floor for public comment regarding these items. Ms. Bohm, did you want to address?
Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. The Village Public Works Department held what we thought was going to be a meeting on April 27th in response to our interest in getting more information and feedback from the village about what the project would be. We come to find out when we get there that it's basically a meet and greet. It's really not a meeting. We still have not, this is over a month later, we still have not received a response to our comments, my husband and I, and our suggestions, so I'm concerned about that. The project goals that were presented in a similar venue here at the council meeting on April 14th indicated that the project goals and objectives for the Clyde Estates project was reconstruct street, improve drainage, address traffic concerns, and preserve trees. And it was interesting, the same night, I believe, was when Mayor Tully indicated that we were being awarded again for the 30-some year for Arbor Day for our tree preservation efforts, and the village pays or puts aside $2 a resident of our taxes to preserve trees and plant trees. So I have some issues with all of these items. For one thing, we have a traffic commission a Traffic and Safety Commission, I believe it's called, in the village, and we also have a Stormwater Committee that is made up of residents in the community that are appointed by the village council or village management. And yet, this project has not gone to either of those committees, even though it is stated, and we all know, that the reasons for some of the extreme development changes in our Clyde Estates is due to traffic concerns and stormwater issues. And I really wonder why the committees that are assigned work by the village haven't been given this project to look at and advise the council on. I also am concerned, at the same night the map was put up on the overhead with Parkway trees impact. At least 14 trees are set to be removed because of the ditches that will be installed, much to our chagrin. Two of the trees on Clyde are both on my yard, one of which is on my property. I still have not heard back from Public Works why that was chosen, because both of my neighbors have trees located in exactly the same latitude as our tree, and they are not set to be removed. So I question why our tree is to be, two of our trees are to be removed. Especially since we're supposed to be preserving trees, and that's the interest of the village council. I think all of this council and previous council mentioned their concern, and that was why the sidewalks were thankfully removed from the project. Another interesting fact was I asked for the hydrology study. By the way, no traffic study was done yet, or has ever been done in Clyde Estates, and a hydrology study that I expected to get was not a hydrology study, it was a stormwater application, permit application. So that was misrepresented as well. And within the first page of this application, the engineering firm that designed this project, this is a direct quote from the letter. The roadway impervious surface is not increased as a result of this project. Therefore, detention, storage, and post-construction best management practices are not required. So then, why do we need to have a hole in the ground and the roadway closed from Washington to Clyde to Main Street? Because that's the reason it's given to us. Also, on the second page of this letter, this permit application, it says, the DuPage County and incorporated areas shows that there is no regulatory floodplain in the site. The DuPage County regulatory flood map, the development that confirms that there are no flood areas in the site. The development will not require work in the floodplain or floodway. Therefore, a floodplain floodway submittal is not required, which also add that on to the fact that this hole in the ground that is proposed is unnecessary. And the third paragraph here, there are no wetlands present in the development area. No wetland or riparian submittals are required. So I question why this village just installed a couple years ago a big, what looks like a degenerate swimming pool over at Washington, north of 59th Street, that's full of weeds. And it just sits there, and it does nothing except pose a danger. If somebody goes off the road, they'll end up in the middle of this big hole in the ground. $41,000 of our taxpayer dollars, and it hasn't accomplished anything except being a bad site for the neighbors to look at. It's a hole in the ground. Why would we put another one in Clyde Estates when there's no wetland, no floodplain there? Getting back to this committee that I mentioned that we have, these two committees, we have a neighbor in my neighborhood that is an expert on hydrology. He's been around the world installing hydrology systems. Bangladesh is one of the places he's been. He also read this supposed hydrology study and said that he's the one that told me it wasn't a hydrology study. Why are we using this hole in the ground in the middle of the triangles that we're going to make smaller? So we're going to take away sod that absorbs rainwater and put in a big hole that is in the highest elevation in Downers Grove to gather dust and leaves and trash that people throw out. because it looks like a hole that would be good for trash. It's not necessary for filtration reasons, which is what I've heard is the reason. We don't need to filtrate water. The grass is the filter. And there's no need to filter water because there's no sediment from anything in our neighborhood. There's no flying dust or sand, or we're not in a delta, a river delta. I also want to mention, with regard to the previous speaker about the roadway collapsing alongside the roadway, 837 Clyde is right next to me, and if you go there today, you'll see the big mud track in the ground right next to the road. It's a garbage truck. The garbage trucks come by in the summer, in the good weather, they come by 3 times a week down our street, and they're distressing the roadway and destroying the side of the road. At 6004 Clyde, which is across the street, they have stones brought in every summer by Public Works to fill in the ruts that are made by the truck that comes by 3 times a week into Clyde Estates. There's no ponding water on our streets. It's not water that is deteriorating the streets. It's 30 years of asphalt that has not been paved. I also want to make an alternative suggestion to the proposed development project in my yard, which is going to be putting a big ditch in there because a pipe is going to go through my front yard, and a hole for a stormwater grate. Well, I don't understand why it can't be put under the roadway. It's going to come across the street from 6004 Clyde, across the street. They're the ones that have the water problem in their front yard when we do have a drastic rain, not any other time. And it would come across the street and into my yard and then down my side of the street. Why is it not possible for the construction project to put the pipe under the street so it's not invading my yard and causing a big hole and tree loss in my yard? And then they can put the storm grate closer to the street so that it goes into this. And we've already heard that Haddow, I believe, is what Mrs. Bennett said, is that the pipe goes under the road over there by the golf course. The same concept can be used on Clyde. It can go under you're digging up my road anyway, and put the pipe under the roadway and go down to where it needs to come into the front yard of the neighborhood, the neighbor that has at the very end of our roadway, so it doesn't invade our properties.
Ms. Bowen, I just asked. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council. Bill Roble, 7800 Queens Court in Downers Grove. I live in a subdivision called Nottingham. Going backwards for about 4 years, Nottingham had a major road reconstruction, and listening to all the concerns of the Clyde Estates people, I relived a lot of the situations that I encountered when when Nottingham was being reconstructed at great expense to the village. Likewise, like the people in Clyde Estates, we had a meeting which was officiated by Andy Sickwich. I believe that, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name. But it was a fait accompli. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do the curbs here, we're going to do this, we're going to put streets and so forth and so on. But what I have issue with, because I see here on the item A and B, is awarding of the contracts. And I particularly want to call attention to the council, the village manager, and Public Works to do a due diligence, how would you call it, estimate or a procedure, because I would, as a taxpayer, I'm compassionate for Clyde Estates that we get value for what we contract for. They're going to do streets, they're going to put proper, how would you call it, underlayment, stone and whatever. 4 years after our street was constructed, I called attention to Nan Newland this last March, took some pictures of cracks in the pavement, cracks in the curb, and I said, this is kind of unusual. And I was told that she assigned Andy and the village, or the consultant, or the village, I'm searching for the word, we hired a person who would supervise the construction. He was a village ambassador or supervisor of the construction. He networked with neighbors and so forth to see that everything was going according to the book, so to speak. And when Andy and he went out to inspect, they told, I got an email from Nan saying that the construction flaws, the cracking of the concrete curbs and the cracking of the pavement was normal for the wear and tear in the winters that we have. I accepted that. They said they would do crack sealing come spring. That happened a couple weeks ago. I observed the crack sealing, and it certainly identifies all the cracks in the pavement. And one of the cracks that I identified when I sent pictures to Nan was at the corner of Queens Court and Roar. It was a crack that went from curb to curb and went across. When I looked at it today, just before I came here, the crack seal was applied, but you can't put crack seal in a crack that wide. And when my car went over it, it went bump, 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 bump. That's not cracked, a normal crack. That's roadway failing. You hear me? I've been watching roads for a long time, but the road is failing. It's only 4 years. It'll be 4 years this November. It's failing. And when I drive my car down Queens Court, Roar Drive, Nottingham, my car goes like this. The road surface is starting to undulate. And you see the crack seal goes like this, like this. It's reminiscent of a road that's been there 10 years. So what I'm saying is when you do this here for Clyde Estates, please, the attorney, the village manager, everybody in administration, be sure we protect the taxpayers of Downers Grove, that we spend a good dollar for a dollar's value. Because I see that probably the streets that I live on in my subdivision in the next some years will have to be milled and resurfaced because the integrity of the roadway is in my mind, a big question mark. And I caution village staff, if they signed off on it, they may have to eat that sign off, or if they signed off on it and said to the contractor that, yeah, this is good work, we should have a warranty, 2 years or whatever. Crack seal doesn't cut it. When the underlayment starts to fail, I've seen my street fail because it was 40 years before they resurfaced it and rebuilt it because we didn't have the money. So when we got the money, I want value for what we spent. Great. And I'm pushing this at the Clyde Estates because $2,361,000 plus another 90-some million. That's almost $2.5 million. It's not small change. We got to get value for what we do. Right. And we have to put the, the responsibility on Public Works to get value for what we do. If they say it's good work, we take them at their word. If it's not good work and they said it was good work, somebody has to be responsible. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Roble.
Thank you.
Further comment?
John Polifka, 6016 Washington. I didn't intend to speak this evening, but I have a number 2 on my list to discuss with the village manager in the future is 59th Street. It was repaved in 2013, early fall. In the spring of 14, there was longitudinal cracking the entire length from Main Street to Fairview. when I say cracking, it isn't just like a crack in the wall. There are parallel cracks. Some are 2 feet apart, some are 4 to 6 inches apart with crazing in between. From discussions I've heard here, curb and gutter contain the street. Well, it hasn't worked on 59th along the entire length of the street with the exception of the middle school. There's cracking at the curb, considerable cracking. So the pavement is failing there. In the spring of 14, something was applied to the pavement from Washington to Main Street, a clear fluid of some sort. In the summer of 14, last year, from Washington to Main, crack sealing was done. I would invite all of you who want to meet with me out there. We'll walk the street. It either has gotten much worse in that section or they missed it. I believe it's gotten worse. There was a section of that roadway around Wall Place and eastbound lane that had to be reground in 14 and repaved. Now that section of pavement seems to be holding up better than the remainder of the street. Trying to make this as quick as possible. I've just been watching this because it just doesn't seem like it was a good job. I understand that the formula for asphalt today is a brittle mix. Well, we need to either improve the mix or do something. I don't know if this road will last 10 years. Now, I'm going to tie this into Clyde Estates. We have 20-year bonds that we're going to be paying for. Will the pavement outlive the payment schedule on those bonds? We'll have to wait and see. One more thing. On the cover sheet, the first drawing for the the engineering drawings for this project in Clyde Estates, the previous village council, each member is listed, the mayor, as well as the village clerk. So I would think if your name appears on drawings, you would want the best possible product because it is a reflection on you. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment on these items? Seeing no further comment, I will entertain.
I feel like I need to know if we're going to have another opportunity to discuss this Clyde problem. Since the first reading is a new concept to me, what happens next?
So this item is here tonight for discussion only, public discussion. The council will have an opportunity to discuss. The item will be placed on the active agenda at next week's meeting, June 16th? The June 16th meeting for vote on these contracts.
So if it's the consent, does that mean that our discussion is over tonight? We have this
No,
little...
this will be placed on active agenda, so there'll be opportunity for public comment and council comment.
Next week?
Next week as well, yes.
But how much time? Am I going to be limited to 5 minutes?
Well,
or
the rules say 5 minutes for public comment.
for public comment?
The public, the rule states that, that during the public comment portion, which we have on each item, on active agenda or first reading agenda, that remarks should be limited to 5 minutes.
Well, tell me how I could have finished what I started during public comment if I had wanted to fully present what I had prepared. And of course, I ran over 5 minutes because it's a vast town, and there were 3 concepts in that talk. Now you're back to my neighborhood, and there are other concerns that I have that I did not prepare. And are you telling me that now I've lost my chance to talk?
No, absolutely. You have an opportunity to speak on each item.
Next week.
Next week.
Next week, I'm limited.
Absolutely. You have an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes at next week's meeting.
I'm again limited to that. I want to remind our representatives that on April 14th, I came up here, and it was before the Public Works Committee, and I said that I had very serious concerns about what was going on in Clyde. And yes, I don't get any feedback from you. And when I go to the Public Works, they spend half their time looking up blueprints that aren't very informative for me. I don't know their language. I don't understand them. So am I not going to be able to talk about what I wanted to talk about in April?
You're welcome to speak with regard to these items
But
during this.
I'm not prepared tonight.
Well, you're welcome to speak next week as well.
For more than 5 minutes?
The rule states that 5 minutes unless council members further time is granted by the council.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I add to that,
Commissioner
please?
Waldeck.
Thank you. Just, my understanding is that staff is planning another neighborhood meeting
I'm afraid
before
that,
construction begins. Was that correct? Did I hear that right tonight?
That is correct.
Okay, so these items on here tonight, you'll be able to talk about these contracts next week, and council will either approve or whatever, they'll take whatever action. You'll be able to talk on that, but you will also have another neighborhood meeting.
but that meeting is going to tell us how we can get in and out of our homes and driveways during construction. And that is not what I want to, that's not my biggest concern. It certainly is a concern, but to be able to address the design itself and the need for ditches where we're high and dry is really the essence of what needs discussion. There was no discussion at Public Works meetings. And this is a chunk of money. And as Bill Roble and John Polifka pointed out, it's not a good design. It's failing all over the town. And as I tried to tell earlier, it's a serious problem. And it can't be addressed in 5 minutes. So I hope the council will allow more time, since that is allowed by the rules of this.
The council can move to direct more time. I would further note that you're welcome to prepare written statements or other statements further detailing concerns or questions that you might have and share those with the council as well. The rule in our ordinance exists, and I don't know the legislative history, but it exists in order to allow the opportunity for all members of the public to be heard and to be respectful of the time of all members.
You mentioned that earlier, but the point remains that these are design concepts, and we had to write comments at the last Public Works meeting. Ms. Bowen said they didn't get any response. I didn't get a response when I asked for a discussion, a conversation. I think that's civil. I think minds have to meet somewhere in the middle, and it's not happening here in this town. So I hope you'll consider, if I get up next week with diagrams and concerns, that I will not be shooed off this platform. Thank you. It's very serious to me.
Thank you.
Laurel Bowen, 829 Clyde Drive. I was sitting there looking at the pictures that we saw, and I wished, and I know all these pictures, I know where they are, I can see, just seeing the pictures where they are. We cannot minimize the problems that are occurring with the public works projects that are being done. They're not working. You can see the pictures. You can go see where they are so you can see them in 3D. This is where we live, and this is our money. We're throwing good money after bad, or bad money after good, when we keep approving projects that are just like the projects of the pictures that we're seeing up on the screen that look horrible. You're ruining neighborhoods. You're making the problems worse than what you're supposedly correcting. And I keep mentioning, you have a stormwater committee, you have a traffic committee. You just hired a new traffic manager for over $90,000, if I'm not mistaken, from the paperwork that I got. Where's the traffic study? What is a traffic manager doing that we just hired if we can't prove that we need all these big changes and all this money being spent on things that are not being rationally decided? And I also want to mention that I have not gotten any feedback at all. And when we have a meeting and we submit comments and I ask for flags to be put in my yard so I know where this stuff's going to happen and where this is going to be dug, nothing happens. We don't hear a word. We don't get an email. We don't get a phone call. We don't get a letter. We don't get anything. And we keep coming here and we keep telling you, this is a problem. I keep repeating myself. I feel like an idiot because I'm repeating myself and nothing's happening. And then we approve a contract for over $3 million next week. And what do we get out of it? Change order after change order and a messed up community for 5 months. And then we have to live with the changes that you've made to our neighborhood and our yards.
Thank you. Are there further comments?
Andrea Alvarez. I'm a community lawyer with Citizen Advocacy Center in Elmhurst, Illinois. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. For those of you who have had experience with CAC, we have over 20 years of promoting the democratic process and the most democratic practices in DuPage County. And with reference to the Clyde Estates project, it seems that there's been a lack of public engagement and a lack of adhering to the most democratic process. And I really hope that next week the council will consider voting no so that you can properly engage and address the concerns of the public. I know that there will be a June 29th meeting, I think is what was referenced for citizen engagement. However, if you're approving the contracts next week, I think it's 2 weeks from tonight, June 29th seems a little late. So I'm just urging you to do the most democratic thing, to listen to your citizens' concerns and do what you were elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment on this matter? There being no further public comment, I'll turn to council comment. The first thing, I just would like to make a brief statement to open the discussion from the council. And I'd encourage all members of the public and members of the council to reference the staff responses to council questions, which were posted online this afternoon. The first item discusses the history of the public engagement used in this process. And I'd just like to read from the report. Public engagement on this project consisted of 3 neighborhood meetings: August 13th, 2014, November 19th, 2014, and April 27th, 2015. 2 village council meetings at which the project was discussed under manager's report: January 6th, 2015, and April 14th, 2015, and numerous informal conversations between residents and staff on site and in public works offices. There then proceed to be a summary of the neighborhood meetings, as well as resulting changes that were made to the plans as a result of the resident engagement. And further, there is a spreadsheet attached with regard to staff responses to public comments on the Clyde Estates project. And it goes through a number of comments that were received. I believe these comments were received at the last April 27th, 2015 public meeting. It discusses each comment that was received and includes a staff response or follow-up item. And so I just encourage that all residents take a look at this. It's a very comprehensive list, and I know that our staff has spent many hours attempting to fully address a number of the concerns in this neighborhood, which vary. We've heard from multiple residents, some that want sidewalks, some that don't want sidewalks, some that want them in some places and not others. We've heard discussion on multiple items throughout the project. For example, the stormwater features of the project, the street reconstruction, tree issues, and the like. And oftentimes there's conflicting public comments. And so therefore, it is the responsibility of, ultimately, of this council to balance those concerns and those public comments in, the most equitable fashion that can be derived. So I'd just like to, add that as some background as we start this discussion. So just ask if my colleagues would have comment on these items. No comment? Hearing none, we'll move on. This item will return next week on active agenda, and there will be further opportunity at that time for public comment and council comment at that time.
Next item on tonight's first reading agenda is consideration of an ordinance authorizing an extension of a special use permit on Rogers Street. And here to present the background information on this item is our planning manager, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, council members. As Manager Fielman noted, the request tonight is for a special use extension for the proposal of 715, 719 Rogers Street. 715, 719 Rogers Street is located just north of Village Hall here on the other side of the tracks, shown at the corner of Prospect and Rogers, here outlined on the site. On May 6th of 2014, the petitioner received a special use approval for the construction of a 4-story, 48-unit multifamily residential development here. Special uses per ordinance lapse after 1 year unless the permit has been issued or a certificate of occupancy has been granted or the special use has been established. So in essence, they either have to have a permit, a CO, or the building has to be constructed. At this time, the building, as you know, has not been constructed. A permit has not been issued. Petitioner is allowed per our code to request up to 2 6-month extensions. This is the petitioner's first request to extend the special use approval through December of this year. They've been working through some new stormwater ordinance requirements and some other things with the building as well, talking to staff. Staff did receive the extension request on May 5th, 2015, so it fell within the 1-year approval period. It just took us some time to get it here onto the agenda before you. If there's any questions you have tonight, I can answer those, or the petitioner's here as well to answer any questions you might have.
Just ask at this time if the petitioner wishes to make any presentation at this time, you're welcome to, or you can certainly wait until after the public and council comment.
We're just here to answer your questions and that, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Raschi. Other comments or questions from members of the public? Comments or questions from members of the council? Hearing none, next item.
The final item on tonight's first reading agenda is consider an ordinance amending liquor code provisions. And here to present information on this item tonight is our village attorney, Enza Petrarca.
Thanks, Dave. An ordinance has been prepared to amend our liquor code to allow liquor product identification on patio umbrellas and also to amend the definition of restaurant in the liquor code. The first item removes the prohibition against the placement of umbrellas that have liquor logos on them and on outside patios. Currently, they are prohibited. This would remove that prohibition and allow those patio umbrellas to be displayed. And the second amendment regarding the definition of restaurants just removes the requirement that an establishment have a full kitchen and that the meals be actually prepared and cooked on site. So just a small tweak to a definition in that, just to allow some more flexibility in licensees. We're seeing a variety of different types of licensees apply. Both of these items were considered by the Liquor Commission and received favorable recommendations. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Petrarca. Is there a public comment question on these items?
We can't hear. We can't hear.
The item was the presentation of the liquor ordinance changes. It is the last item in your packet. Is there discussion or questions from the council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Downtown Management Corporation supports the advertising on the umbrellas. Quite frankly, at the Downtown Management meeting, I was surprised to see that advertising on umbrellas is a liquor ordinance situation. So I'm happy to, and they are happy to see if we decide to remove that type of advertising. I don't think it adds to the idea of alcohol being an inducement to over-imbibing or whatever. Regarding the second item, since I first came on council, it was an extremely big deal that restaurants serve more food than alcohol, that alcohol was adjunct to a meal. And since that time, it has, some people call it a slippery road. I'll say it's a change. And now we've gotten to the point where I think this is a good amendment in that it actually, you don't have to have a full kitchen in the establishment, but you're allowed to go outside and get good food. So it's good for the businesses that provide good food. It also encourages people that want to imbibe and get some good food rather than something that might come out of a kitchen that isn't fully prepared, shall we say. So you can get good food and good drinks, so I think it's a move in the right direction. I support both items.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. That ends our first reading agenda tonight.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Well, that takes us to item 9, Mayor's Report. I have no report. Item 10, Manager's Report.
No report tonight, Mayor Pro Tem.
Item 11, Attorney's Report.
Thank you. 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance authorizing the extension of a special use to permit a multifamily residence at 715, 719 Rogers. And the second is an ordinance amending liquor code provisions. Both of these items will be on next week's active agenda.
Thank you, Attorney Petrarca. That brings us to item 12, Council Member Reports. Do members of the Village Council have items they wish to report tonight? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, once again, Mayor Pro Tem. I attended 2 of the downtown management meetings. They were very good. They were very interested in learning whether or not this particular council is pro-business. I asked them to review last week's meeting and long-range planning, and I asked them to participate. They were very good meetings. I also met with their executive, Linda Kunze, and their chair, and we had 2 good meetings about a lot of the issues that they face. And I think we're establishing, or continuing to maintain a good relationship with the Downtown Management Group. That's all I have for a report.
Thank you, Commissioner Waldeck. Further council member reports. I'd just like to report and remind everyone that the Daughters of the American Revolution are having their Flag Day concert, 3 o'clock Sunday, June 14th, this Sunday, Flag Day, at Fishel Park, right near the downtown. So look forward to attending. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor Pro Tem, I motion to adjourn this meeting.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Vatimo? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Olson?
Aye. Our meeting tonight is adjourned. Thank you very much.